Okay, yeah, so I'm going to talk to you all about school in Italy. So in high school, I studied in Italy for one semester. So I've had some experience in Italian high school, or as they call it, liceo. And then I've also had some experiences with Italian university. I studied for a semester over there as well. But today I'm going to focus a little more on life in high school. So you all can kind of think about what you would be heading into next year if you were Italian, and how maybe it's similar to, but also different than what your experience might be like here in the States. So first of all, a big difference is that in Italy, there are actually 5 years of high school. Or liceo. So you still start at the equivalent age as we do here in the U.S. So transitioning from 8th grade into 9th grade, you start liceo, but you don't graduate until a year later. And also Italian grade levels in high school aren't called 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, etc. They're actually called primo, secondo, terzo, etc. So that's first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And I found that funny when I first understood what was going on, because when we think of a first grader, we're going to think maybe of a 6-year-old, not of a freshman in high school. And then let's see. So another kind of big difference that I would say is that for all 5 years of liceo, Italian high school, you stay in one class. And by that, I mean that in your first year, when you arrive to your high school, you're placed in a class. So it could be 1A, 1B, 1C, etc. You're typically placed in there with about 15 or 20 other students. This can vary depending on the size of your school, the size of the city you live in or town, etc. But these are the students that you'll spend every day of every school day of the next 5 years with. So there's no switching classrooms. I don't know exactly how y'all's school is set up, but I know in both my middle school and high school in the States, let's say I had math for first period, so I'd walk to my math classroom, participate everything, and then the bell would ring and I would have second period, let's say history, and so I'd walk to my history classroom. In Italy, that's not how it works. You actually go to the same classroom every day. And so your math teacher would come in for first period, bring any materials, have class. And then for second period, your math teacher would leave and rotate to a different room, and your history teacher would come in. So this definitely has an impact on your high school experience. You're with this smaller group of people, and they typically get really close to each other. I joined a third year high school class, and so that was their third year of being together. And so they all knew each other really well, which for me was great. They were very open and welcoming, and I kind of just jumped right in. But it's definitely different, I think, than our U.S. system, where different classes, you're seeing different people every hour. So and so another big difference is that, and Claire kind of hit on this a little bit, but in Italy, they actually do it in high school as well. You go into high school and you choose a specific type of high school. So kind of already based on what you want to do, or what you think you maybe want to study in university, or what type of job you might want to get after school. So there are four main different types of liceos in Italy. There's classico, scientifico, linguistico, and artistico. So that's classic, scientific, linguistic, and artistic, very similar names. And they all have somewhat of a similar base curriculum. Classic is, as the name would suggest, the most classic. You cover the base curriculum, and then maybe have more of a focus in history and things like that. Scientific, you're going to be taking a lot more science-based classes. I know a lot of my friends that went to Scientifico high schools were thinking about maybe being an engineer or a doctor later in life. Linguistico, you're going to study a lot of languages, Latin, Greek, English, definitely, obviously Italian, maybe Spanish or German, and you'll be studying them all simultaneously, as well as having your maths and histories and base curriculum. And then I attended a liceo artistico, so an artistic school. I'm not creative at all, but it was nice because I could, when I first arrived and didn't know the language, I could participate in some of their more hands-on classes. And so these are people that know that they maybe want to, there's also focus on art history and such like that, but maybe people that want to go into graphic design or know that they want to do something, have a pretty creative job. The good thing about, it's kind of stressful, or in my mind, it would be stressful too after 8th grade. So you guys would be deciding now what type of high school you wanted to go into. And that, like Claire said, I came into college not knowing what I wanted to study, and that's a whole 4 years later. But it doesn't completely, it's not 100% determining factor of what you'll do after high school. It is kind of a guiding hand. So like I said, a lot of the people that I was in class with in the artistic school went on to do creative type things, and scientific people end up typically doing science related things. But it's not definitely going to determine what you do. You can graduate from a certain high school and then go on to study something different. Kind of like here in the US, you can graduate with a certain degree from college, and maybe your first job doesn't necessarily have to completely correlate with your degree. So that's kind of definitely an interesting difference. And then another difference, I know we asked you all at the beginning if you play sports, whether it's related to school or not. And in Italy, there are, for the majority of schools, there are really no clubs and sports associated with the school. There's no student government or service-based clubs, definitely not like basketball and football teams that are directly associated with your high school. That doesn't mean, though, that Italians don't play sports. As you can guess, soccer is still a huge sport, and as is basketball, volleyball, probably a lot of the same type of sports that you all play or maybe go to watch. But unlike here in the U.S., Friday night isn't a night where you go out and cheer on your school in a football game or a basketball game. And, I'd say that's a pretty big part of American high schools. But in Italy, instead, you might join a club team, or you might just get a group of friends that wants to get together on maybe a weekly basis and go out and play some soccer, play some basketball. And then I just want to reiterate a similarity between Spain and Italy. So Claire talked to you all about kind of on a day-to-day schedule, you don't eat lunch at your school, and it's the exact same in Italy. So it's kind of a cultural thing. Meals are pretty family-oriented, and it's typical to always eat with your family. And so for my high school, I would get out around 1:30 or 2 and head home, and my host brother, host mom would also be at home. By that time, my host dad would come back from work if he could, and we would eat lunch together as a family. So I kind of hope that gives you a glimpse of daily life in Italy and kind of how it compares to America, and also some similarities to Spain as well. And now we're going to do a little myths versus facts again.
All right, yeah. So now that we've heard a little bit about Spain, a little bit about Italy, how they're, similar and different to each other, and how they're both kind of similar and different from school in the U.S., we're going to do a little myths versus facts like we've done in the past. So I'll say something, and if you think it's a fact, you can just give us a thumbs up. And then if you think it's a myth, you can give us a thumbs down. So the first one we have is, In Spain, students are often learning their fourth language by the time they graduate high school. So thumbs up if you think that's true, thumbs down if you think it's not true. Yeah, so that is a fact. Like I said, my host brother who was 17 was in English, German, and French class in his school. So it is really common for students in Spain to be learning multiple languages by the time they graduate from high school. So the next one is, every school in Spain is a Catholic school. So yes, no. Yeah, so that one's a little bit tricky because I did talk about how many Catholic schools there are in Spain, but not every school in Spain is a Catholic school, so that's a myth. But it is a lot more common to go to a Catholic school there than it is in the US. Okay, so our next one's about Italy. As an Italian student, you stay with one group of people for all 5 years of high school. Yep, so that's a fact. So that's one of the things that's really different from our high school is you have all your classes together with the same people. And then our last one is, Italian high schools have more clubs and sports teams than the average American high school. Yeah, so that's a myth. So like Emma said, that clubs and sports teams don't really have them associated with schools in Italy. So now we want to give you guys some time to ask us any questions that you might have about what we talked about today, or anything we've talked about throughout the semester, or just general questions you have about Italy or Spain or study abroad or anything at all. So if you guys want to take a few minutes, think of questions, either come up to the computer or type them in, whichever is easier, and then we'll answer them for you.